There are two things in life that everybody wishes we had more of: time and money, right? But there's only one of those that we can actually get more of. We can get more money, all right? Anybody for more money? Yes, all right. But time we can't get more of. So that means that it is not a renewable resource, which also means that it is more precious. Now, none of us actually know how much time we have, right? We kind of wish that that was the case, but we don't. So because we don't, it should have some implications on how we live our lives, right? Well, back in 2012, hip-hop artist Drake came out with the song called The Motto, right? And in this song, he said, "You only live once. It's the motto, YOLO." And then he goes on to say, "And we bought it every day, every day, every day. Forget what anybody say." Now, Drake did a lot better than me. But I think that Drake is actually right in one sense, right? We only get one life, so we should enjoy it, right? We should make the most of it. Now, I'm not subscribing to the way in which Drake and Wayne said that we should enjoy it. I'm not going to repeat some of the things that they said in the song, because there are implications for how we live our lives, right? But if time is limited and we don't know how much we have, how then should we live? What should we do? Where should we put our focus? How should we invest? Well, this weekend we kick off a new series about time called Dash. Dash is the symbol between the day we were born and the day that we die. And what we do with our dash tells the story of our life and how we invested our time. Now, before we kind of unpack a passage of scripture that I want to look at today, I always kind of like these little stats that show us like what we do with our time over our lifetime. Some of you all have seen some of those things before. Now, we have 168 hours in a week, all right? We have 8,760 per year. So let's just kind of look at some of these, average statistics on what we do with our time, right? So sleeping is a big one. We spend a lot of time sleeping. So if you live the average 78 years of life, which is, I think, the average life expectancy here in the United States, it's said that we sleep a third of that time. So approximately 26 years of our life we spend sleeping. But you know what's funny? I found in the research that I was doing that we also spend an additional 7 years trying to get to sleep, right? So we sleep 26 years and then spend another 7 years trying to, so that's more than a third of our life. That's like 33 years. That includes the time where we're laying in the bed, we're tossing, we're trying to get to sleep, whatever the case. And for some of us, it might even be longer because you hit the snooze like 8 times in the morning, So 7 additional years trying to get to sleep, right? And then this one about reading. So reading leisurely, right? We spend less than 10 minutes per day doing that. Like that tells me a lot right there, right? Okay. Social media, though, on the other hand, 1,300 hours last year we spent. That's approximately 54 days on social media. That's 2 plus hours a day on average. For some of us, it's a lot more. Then the bathroom, right? This one was funny right here and actually pretty surprising. So we spent about 2+ years in the bathroom. And men actually, when you look at the general things that we do in the bathroom, brush our teeth, shower, sit on the toilet, all that stuff, right? Okay, so men actually spend a little more time than women, right? But hold on. When you add in grooming, that shifts the balance completely. Because men spend 62 days of their life grooming, women 309 days. Somebody's clapping. Cars, all right? Cars. 10 plus hours per week in our cars, 22 plus days a year. If you're in an area like this, it might be longer if you commute and all that sort of stuff. Pets, 45 minutes a day, walking them, playing with them. That's 11 plus days a year. And then the top 5 things that we spend our time doing generally: sleeping, number 1, then eating, driving, working, and the internet. All right? That's the top 5 for us. There's a reason why there are tons and tons and tons of time management books, time management, just strategies for how we use our time, because we only have a finite amount of time, and we're actually not great at managing it. We're not that great, and we live in a world that's constantly trying to get pieces of our time, right? Trying to market to us, hey, come over here, do this. Hey, you should do this. Hey, you need this. We got 25, 50 things in our house that somebody told us we need. We use a couple times and they're still there, right? So we have people constantly trying to get pieces of our time, pieces of our money, so forth and so on. And I've said this before in a previous message, and I'll say it again because it is very appropriate for what we're talking about in this series. And as we kick this series off today, what we give our time and attention to has influence over us. So when we look at this example that we're going to zoom in on John chapter number 7 in the Gospels, it's an opportunity for us to look at how Jesus spent his time. And we're going to go through that in the 4 weeks of this series, because if we are, or we're discovering, or we're processing what it means to be a Jesus follower, that means that giving him our attention, that means understanding how he lived and what he did and how he moved, we should move. And one of the things that we see in the Gospels is how focused Jesus was with his mission and his purpose as it relates to time. And this allowed him to make the most of the time that he had. Now think about this for a minute. Jesus lived for 33 years. He spent 30 years getting ready for 3 years of impact, right? 30 years. Now, think about that. Like, in the culture that we live in, like, it's probably flipped for us. We probably on the opposite end, trying to have minimal time and have maximum input, right? Like, yeah, we'll take the 3 years and then hopefully have 30 years of impact, right? That's kind of, or we're just kind of looking for the viral moment that we can hit it and then, like, boom, it just blows up, and then we can kick back and relax the rest of our life, right? But 30 years for 3 years of ministry, and those 3 years turn the world upside down. That tells me a lot that we can do if we actually focus our time, the impact that we can have. And so John chapter number 7 gives us an example, just one of several examples of how Jesus was so focused on his time and how Jesus models this for us. So I want you guys to follow along with me as John chapter number 7, verses 1 through 9. Before we jump into this, the first 2 words says after this. I want you to understand the context here. So what happened just before this is Jesus is teaching, and many disciples outside of the 12, because we know about the 12 disciples, but there were a lot more people who were following Jesus. By this point, it says many of them left him, because what he was saying was too hard. It was too difficult. And so they walked away from him because they were discouraged. And then he turns to his disciples and he says, his 12, are y'all rolling too? And they still kind of stuck around, but Jesus already knew what time it was and where they were. And so this is what was happening at this particular time. And so we pick it up in verse number 1 in John 7. It says, after this, so after Jesus is having this conversation and those folks left, Jesus traveled in Galilee, since he did not want to travel in Judea because the Jews were trying to kill him. Probably a good idea. The Jewish festival of shelters was near. So his brothers said to him, leave here and go to Judea so that your disciples can see your works that you are doing. For no one does anything in secret while he's seeking public recognition. If you do these things, show yourself to the world, for not even his brothers believed in him. Verse 6, Jesus told them, my time has not yet arrived, but your time is always at hand. The world cannot hate you, but it does hate me because I testify about it, that its works are evil. Go up to the festival yourselves. I'm not going up to this festival because my time has not yet fully come. After he had said these things, he stayed in Galilee. I want to just use for a simple subject this weekend as we kick off this new series on time, living on purpose. I want to talk about living on purpose. Throughout the Gospels, many people had an agenda for Jesus. They had things they wanted him to do. They were trying to get his attention. They were trying to draw him here or there. There was definitely an agenda for him. But he only made time for what was a part of his purpose. And so we'll unpack over the next few weeks what this looks like. But in our culture today, we've kind of got this all access culture, right? Where anything you want at any time, you can get. And there's also an expectation that you're just supposed to be on and available to whoever, whenever they want, right? Like we have these phones, we have these computers, we have technology, all of these sorts of things that basically say that we should be on demand as well, and that we should follow the cultural norms that suggest that. But the life of Jesus and those of us who follow Jesus, it's a little bit different trajectory. It's a little bit different direction, right? Paul, who wrote the majority of the New Testament, he says, be careful how you live, because the days are evil, meaning that the days or the things that are happening during the days are contrary to what God has called us to, and we need to make the most of every opportunity. So there are two quick points that I want to dive into that I think Jesus shows us in this interaction that he's having with his brothers in John 7. So if you're taking notes, here's point number 1. Living on purpose is easier when you're clear and not distracted. When I was in college, it was probably the 4 worst years of my life. And it took me a while to really get to that point where I realized that it was really bad for me. And it was also conflicting as well, because I was an all-conference athlete. I went on to become an All-American. I had a full football scholarship. I excelled athletically, but I was completely aimless in the classroom. And I wasn't aimless because I wasn't smart, because I was being lazy, or because I wasn't going to class. I just had no clarity. I had no direction for my life. And I realized as I rewound this time, it was really just about 2 or 3 years ago that I realized I think I was suffering from some level of depression. It was really bad, and it was amazing that I actually made it through and I eventually graduated. But here's the thing that I thought of as I was processing this text and I was processing what I would say today. Here's what I realized: where I had clarity, which was my athletic goals and my dreams there, I thrived and I was undeterred because I was clear. But where I lacked clarity, which was in the classroom, I wasted time and I wandered. And I was trying to subscribe to conventional wisdom that said that, oh, you should try to get a job in this area, or you should study this because after you graduate from college, it'll be something you can fall back on, and all of these sorts of things. I was pursuing this conventional wisdom that was a disconnect for me. And it was almost like I was two different people. And I think that we wrestle the same way in our lives. We're often unclear about purpose. What is my purpose? What am I supposed to do with my life? Now, this is not a series about purpose. It's about time. But purpose is a factor in how we use and invest our time, right? I was clear about how to invest my time to become a professional athlete, which I was able to do, but I was unclear about how to invest my time when it came to my gifts off the field and my talents and my interests and my passions. And so I just want to encourage somebody today that might be in this category and you're post-college and you think you should have figured this out by now and you're processing this and you're struggling. Listen, you don't need to necessarily know exactly where you're going, but pay attention to your strengths, to your passions, and even the things that frustrate you, because those are clues to purpose. God gave us generally a statement of purpose in Genesis 3 where he said, be fruitful and multiply. And, I've given you dominion or authority in the world. And then Jesus basically reiterated this in John 15, where he said, it pleases the Father when we are fruitful. Now, we just so happen to come out of a series where we were talking about the fruit of the Spirit. If you missed that, you can hit the rewind button on it on YouTube. It's there. But this whole idea about producing fruit is important, but we have to understand that the fruit is not about recognition. It's about a reflection of the redemptive work that God has called us to. And a lot of the fruit that we see in our world and a lot of what we're being pulled into with our time is to produce fruit that is about us, that is about recognition. But no, it's about being a reflection of the redemptive work that God is doing in us and through us. And Jesus's brothers were confused about his mission. Listen to what they said. You should go to this festival because you got all this stuff going on. You need to put yourself on display. People need to see what you are doing, not stay behind the scenes. If you're trying to get public recognition, well, you need to go to this festival. Well, Jesus was not about public recognition. That's not what he came for. And they were trying to get him to waste his time on their agenda. There's so many people who are trying to get us to waste our time on their agenda, and it has nothing to do with the purpose that we're called to. But we have to be clear about our purpose. Otherwise, we'll get sucked into things that have nothing to do with us, but everything to do with what someone else thinks that we should be doing or their agenda. So number one, living on purpose is easier when we're clear and not distracted. And then number two, living on purpose is easier when you're confident in who you are. So much of our fruit that we're trying to produce is about other people. It's about trying to prove our worth, trying to prove our value to someone else. We're wasting so much time trying to show people something. And we're so concerned about what people think about us. And it's a complete waste of time that produces nothing of worth in our lives, right? Maybe you showed them, maybe you proved to them, maybe you made it clear who you, but they don't care about you anyway. Not for real. And so we're investing time showing people or producing things that really don't matter in the long run. Jesus' brothers, they had their own issue. You know what Jesus' brothers' issue was? They didn't believe him. They did not really think that, they thought this dude is crazy. Like now listen, before you hate on Jesus' brothers, if you had a brother or sister and they're like, I'm the son of God or I'm the woman of God, you would be like, yo, we're going to check you in like right now. They thought that Jesus was crazy. They did. They didn't believe him. And can I just tell you something? It's time for us to stop investing in relationships with people who don't believe us, or who don't believe in us, or who are not for us, or who are not investing in God's purpose and plans for us. It's time to move on. Several times, and I love this, Jesus just ignored people, and specifically ignored his family on a couple of occasions. Let me just elevate a couple of them for you. Matthew 12, you can write this down if you want to check it out. Matthew 12, Mark 3, they tell the same story. And I love this story. Jesus is teaching. He's on mission. He's doing what he's supposed to do, right? Doing his thing. And his family, his mother and his brothers, they're coming to take him away. He's saying, he's the Son of God and he's doing these things, and they're worried about him, and they think, again, he's out of his mind, and people interrupt him, and they're like, yo, Jesus, man, your mother, your brothers, bro, they looking for you, man. They outside right now. They trying to get you. And Jesus was like, yo, hold up. Who is my mother? Who is my brother? As a matter of fact, the people right here who are pursuing the will of God with me, that's my mother, and that is my brother. I will not be distracted. I will not come away from this mission. Jesus was confident in who he was, even though his family thought he was crazy. And not only did his family think he was crazy, but Jesus spent 3 years investing in 12 people who weren't always sure that Jesus was who he said he was. Bro, I'm like turning 2 fishes and 5 loaves into an all-you-can-eat feast. People are coming here lame, and then they walking away. Blind people are getting in sight, and I'm walking on water. What do you mean? They weren't always sure that he was who he said he was. Now, Jesus was confident in who he was, and I hear what you might be saying. Yeah, Pastor Josh, but he was the Son of God. Wait a minute. He also was fully man too. And so he struggled in his flesh the same way that we would. So you don't think that maybe there were thoughts of insecurity? Yes, there were definitely thoughts of frustration. Even on the cross, he said, my God, why have you forsaken me? But Jesus was confident in who he was, which is what helped him stay on mission. He faced constant opposition, even from his family. And so he just told his brothers, like, listen, don't try to spend my time for me. Don't try to send me to Judea to this festival. Y'all go to the festival. I ain't going. He knew who he was. And I want you to know who you are in God as well, and who God says that you are. So that means in order to know who God says you are, you got to invest time in God's word and listening to who God says that you are above what other people say that you are, above what your family says or thinks that you are. And I'm just going to tell you, you are smart, you are beautiful, you are gifted, you are intelligent, and you are not crazy. Even though maybe what God has put in your heart might seem crazy, like planting a church in the middle of a pandemic, but you are not crazy. But what God may have called you to may seem crazy. I want you to be confident in who God has called you to be, so you don't waste time trying to prove yourself, because you have nothing to prove. All you're called to do is be obedient. So no more wasting time on people not invested in your purpose. Let me see if I can bring this in for a landing. I love kind of telling you guys a little bit about my life as we get to know each other. And I do get a chance to spend some time with some of you guys individually and, get to know me. But part of how I do that is I just kind of tell you stuff about my life. So one thing you might not know about me is that, I absolutely love interior design and home decor. Love it. I know that might seem like, man, this athletic guy played in the NFL. What is this home? That does not match. It does not. But I absolutely love it. I mean, the magazines, the shows, HDTV, Discovery Plus, like I'm watching it all. When I go on planes and I travel, I have probably at least one of those magazines. Architectural Digest I subscribe to. Like, I love it. And one of the things that I love about it is I love seeing the before and after pictures. Like, that's one of my favorite things. And one of the things that you will notice if you've seen any of these shows before is that the builders and the designers, they always keep the clients away, right? They try to keep them away. They talk to them, hey, this is the plan. This is what we're doing. Now go. Do not come back around here until we finish, all right? They send them away, right? Because they're doing a new thing. And it's always better than what they could have imagined, right? They have an idea of what's going to happen, but they don't really know, because in most cases, these are like complete renovation projects. They're making something completely new again. Well, I was thinking about this as it relates to John chapter number 7. And here's what I realized. What's happening in John 7 is his brothers are saying, Jesus, you should go down to the festival of shelters. Now, let me tell you what the festival or the Feast of Shelters was. It was a festival in the fall. So on our calendar, it happens around October, like early October to mid-October. It's the longest and it's the greatest festival of the 7 annual feasts that were mentioned in the Old Testament. And it is a celebration of God's presence while Israel was homeless. So they left Egypt. They didn't have a home. And so they lived in shelters, and God's presence was with them in these shelters. This is part of the old covenant. But Jesus comes on the scene, and Jesus represents the new covenant. So they want him to be focused on this old covenant and this old celebration, which is fine. But Jesus is like, nah, listen, I'm good because my time has not come yet. And what he's saying is, like, that's all good, but there's a new reveal coming. Like, you're focused on this thing over here, but there's a new thing that is happening, that is coming, and I'm not going to waste my time celebrating a memory when I'm creating a new moment. And sometimes people are trying to get us to celebrate old stuff, or they're getting us to point down a memory lane, and God is doing a new thing in our lives. And Jesus is like, yo, I'm the one. You don't know it yet, but I am the one. And the mission that God and the purpose that God has called us to is to do what he is doing through his son Jesus and through us, to make things new. We don't have time to waste on what was. Jesus is the one who was prophesied about in Isaiah when it says, behold, I am doing a new thing. This is why these renovation shows, this is why they send people away. Because they're gonna be doing too much. They're gonna be in the way. They're going to be disruptive. No, go away, because we are doing a new thing. And God wants to do a new thing in and through you. So we need to dismiss people and dismiss others and dismiss situations that's not about this new thing, that's going to be a distraction and a waste of our time. He has a purpose and a plan for us. And we don't have time to waste on other people's unbelief. And that includes the closest people to us. Sometimes family and sometimes friends. Because we're called to live on purpose, we've got to be laser focused on that, just like Jesus showed us in John chapter 7.